Hare Krishna, Dandvat Pranam. Thank you so much for taking interest in studying Srimad Bhagavad Gita with us. So here's just the introduction of our institute. It's Sri Rupa Manjari Institute, which is headed by our dearly beloved Siddhi Lalasa Mataji, who is a resident of the Hare Krishna temple, Radha Ras Bihari temple or ISKCON temple at Juhu, Mumbai. So, under her guidance and due to her inspiration, we are trying to study Bhagavad Gita together. All right. So now, let me take you to today's meditation. So for today's deep breathing exercise and meditation, we are going to meditate on this beautiful picture of Giriraj Govardhan. And you are encouraged to take deep breath and release out through your mouth. Deep breath through your nose in and release out through your mouth while just paying attention to what I'm saying. All right, so let's begin our meditation. So Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai. Just put yourself at the foothill of this glorious hill which is found in Sri Vrindavan Dham, Shri Giriraj Govardhan. Just imagine how Krishna has protected you through so many difficulties in life and has brought you here. And, in the association of devotees discussing the most glorious teachings of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Imagine how you are under the shelter of this beautiful Giriraj, which is held up by Girivardhari Krishna himself on the little finger of his left hand. Just see how so many dear devotees of Krishna, Vrajavasis, are sheltered under this great hill. His dear cows, his monkeys, his peacocks, his dearly beloved parents, and so many loving devotees are all gathered under Giriraj. And just imagine that you are trying to serve and assist all these dear devotees who are around you to come closer and closer to Krishna. You are trying to bring them more comfort by arranging things for them, by making it more comfortable for them, and noticing your endeavor to serve and please his devotees. Krishna is very, very pleased with you. And wherever you are moving, Krishna is just looking at you. So, so feel the beloved Lord's merciful glance and grace upon you, and be very, very grateful for all the services that you are being able to render in this human form of life. We will now take 5 deep breaths. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Giriraj Govardhan ki jai. Thank you so much for meditating with us on this beautiful hill of Giri Govardhan. Now let's meditate on the Mangalacharan mantra, which we have been discussing in our last lecture as well. So the mantra is Shri Guru Pranam. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, who has opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance, with the torchlight of knowledge. So we've been meditating on this mantra since past 2 classes now. Today we are going to discuss what is it that a guru teaches. What is it that a guru offers, and how does his offering or his teaching remove the veil of ignorance from our eyes? So now I'm also going to connect this to our agenda for today. Our agenda for today is to study the preface of Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, as well as first three paragraphs of the introduction of Bhagavad Gita. So, in the preface, in the first chapter, Prabhupada briefly describes that that previously he had printed a Bhagavad Gita under the publisher Macmillan, but due to their strict guidelines, he had to cut short his presentation and not include several aspects of his purports and images in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. But when the book became popular, he himself published the book under the umbrella of ISKCON Press, which is now known as Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. So, we are going to discuss that story and also answer the question, what is it that a guru teaches? All right. So the story will take us back to 1922 when a young man by the name Abhay Charan Dey was literally dragged to the ashram of a sadhu by his friend. Abhay Charan Dey had seen several sadhus since since as a child, because his father was also always welcoming sadhus and spiritual personalities to his home, but he always saw that he always doubted their character, their actions, and he never felt at peace with that. So somehow, on the insistence of his friend, Abhay Charan Dey came into the ashram of this one sadhu. So this one sadhu sitting here is Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. Now, hearing from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada completely shook Abhay Charan Dey, because Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur wasn't an ordinary sadhu. He was a very learned, erudite scholar who was presenting the philosophy of Vedanta and Srimad Bhagavatam very forcefully. There was a very deep discussion which undertook, and that discussion is recorded in several of our biographies on Srila Prabhupada. I'm not going into the discussion about that dialogue, but I would want to mention that during that discussion, even though this was the first meeting, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada gave a very direct, clear instruction to Abhay Charan Dey. You are an intelligent young man. You should take these teachings of Lord Chaitanya to the West. So here's the answer. A bona fide spiritual master is going to give you the truths from the Vedic scriptures, and most importantly, he is going to engage you in service of God. That's what a bona fide guru does. So, so then what happened next? So this was the place actually. Now it has been renovated by the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, our ISKCON movement. But this is the place where our founder Acharya, who was previously known as Abhay Charan Dey, met his guru. And that's where he got his first instruction. All right. So now Abhay Charan Dey was already a married man when he met his guru. He already had a wife and few children, but that instruction stayed with him in his heart. So throughout his life, literally, he prepared himself. He studied the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya. He practiced bhakti to deepen his realizations. And then eventually, it's a very beautiful story which you must read, um, or discuss or hear. It's a biography of Srila Prabhupada which can be read. But eventually, I think in 1959, Srila Prabhupada took sannyas. He left his family and moved to Sri Vrindavan Dham alone without much money, lived in a small room in Sri Sri Radha Damodar temple, which is a beautiful temple in Vrindavan. Uh, and with whatever little resources he had, he would often travel from Vrindavan to Delhi to get Srimad Bhagavatam, his commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam in English, printed. So this is the, printing machine where the Bhagavatam got printed. So after completing 3 volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam, after printing them, he thought he is now ready. So after printing them, he would also actually reach out to influential people like Rajendra Prasad here and hand out his commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam to such well-known personalities. But he knew that his Guru Maharaj has given him an instruction to move to the West. So after struggling immensely, but somehow through Krishna's directions, he met Sumati Morarji in Mumbai, who was the chief of the Sindhya, ships, the cargo ships, which used to send, or send or import or export whatever goods between the US and India. So he met her, and he literally influenced her, and somehow allowed or took a place on one of their cargo ships which was going to the US. And while traveling also, he got 2 heart attacks, but anyways, somehow he reached United States of America just to fulfill that one instruction of his guru. So he was all alone in the West, but on the basis of his purity and the blessings of his spiritual master, simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra in the public parks, he could somehow influence the youngsters of America and encourage them to study Bhagavad Gita and practice bhakti. So, but of course, when he went to the West, he was not much known. He was not, nobody knew him. Nobody knew him. He was not an authority. So he kept on pushing his students to approach several publishing houses so that they can get a Bhagavad Gita printed. So there was this one devotee, His Grace Brahmananda Prabhu, who you can see in this picture. He would write to several publishers on behalf of Srila Prabhupada. And then finally, after some endeavor, they got one reply from Macmillan Publishers. They are quite well known. We know them even now. He, along with some of his other devotee friends, went to the Macmillan office as once after receiving a mail from them. But only disappointment awaited them there, because the clerk there had actually written that letter and he only wanted one copy for himself. He was not he was not really wanting to publish it, so they were kind of disappointed. But Krishna would always have his own plans, and there was this one very well off gentleman passing through the office of this clerk. He was actually the head of that particular branch of Macmillan's. So Brahmananda Prabhu asked, can I speak to this person? So the clerk said, no, he will never meet any authors. They have to take, appointments several months in advance. So, but anyways, so disappointed, they just kind of tried to preach to the clerk. But somehow, that gentleman who was the head of that particular branch of Macmillan walked back and asked them, "Are you somehow related to a Swami or a Hindu sannyasi or a Swami?" They said, "Yes, yes, yes." So then he disclosed that Macmillan is trying to publish some religious books. They have a copy of the Quran, they have a copy of the Bible, but they are not able to get their hands on anything for the Hindu religion. So Brahmananda Prabhu was delighted and he spoke that yes, my guru has written his commentary on Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So fantastic. So, so somehow Krishna arranged and Prabhupada's book was published by leading publisher Macmillan. But of course, as I was mentioning previously, Macmillan had their own specifications of what should be the length of the book. So several Hridayananda Maharaj, one of Prabhupada's other disciples, had to cut short Srila Prabhupada's purports, and also they had to exclude any pictures. So this is how the Bhagavad Gita. So once Prabhupada got established, he later then because once he was established as an author, demand for his books increased. So he established ISKCON Press and started printing the entire book. His entire commentary he started printing under ISKCON Press and later BBT, as I said. So this is the story behind the book that we are studying, Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, as explained by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who was previously known as Abhay Charande in his Grihastha ashram. So, and now that we know what a guru does, guru basically uh, connects us or engages us in service of God. All right, so let's move ahead. Now let's move to the paragraph 2 of our preface. In the second paragraph, Prabhupada emphasizes that his commentary on Bhagavad Gita is Bhagavad Gita as it is. And the father of the Hare Krishna movement, which at that time had become an explosion literally in the Western world because so many young men and women were joining the movement, he established that Krishna is the father of the movement, and he also gave much credit to his own spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, in that paragraph. Now, coming back to the question, why is Prabhupada saying that his commentary on Bhagavad Gita is presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is? Actually, there are several commentaries on the Gita. Now, even here in the West, there are several yoga schools, and each of them kind of teach Bhagavad Gita to their students. And several of them, at least, or in fact, most of them, would point out that this entire thing about there being a Kurukshetra war, there being Pandavas, and there being a divine personality Krishna is all representational. No such people actually ever existed. There was no such war. There were no such people. This is all representational. A story has been woven by the sages to present this philosophy. But actually, Krishna is fictional, Arjun is fictional, and Kurukshetra is also fictional. So that is one way of commenting. So they try to take the knowledge and the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, but banish Krishna or kill Krishna. That this is one thing. Another thing is usually there is a uh, school of study of Srimad Bhagavad Gita which states that actually God is ultimately formless, and you and I are as much part of that God as is Krishna, and that formless God actually incarnated or came down with a form like ours in the form of Krishna to give that divine knowledge which is there in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. But there is no difference between you and him. So this is one another commentary on Bhagavad Gita. So Srila Prabhupada says, no, that Krishna is for real. He establishes that in this paragraph. He said, he says that Krishna is for real. Krishna is a real person, and Kurukshetra was for real. Pandavas were for real. This is not fictional. It is a fact. It is itihas. And here are some arguments which Srila Prabhupada puts forth, which I will read. This absolute position of Krishna is difficult to understand for any person who is not a devotee of Krishna in the system of parampara or disciplic succession. What? So we get one word here, parampara. We'll have to study this. Generally, the so-called scholars, politicians, philosophers, and swamis, without perfect knowledge of Krishna, try to banish or kill Krishna when writing a commentary on Bhagavad Gita, right? As we just discussed. Such unauthorized commentary on Bhagavad Gita is known as Mayavad Bhashya. And Lord Chaitanya has warned us about these unauthorized men. So Srila Prabhupada is trying to establish that Krishna is Bhagavan. Now, what is Bhagavan? And he's for real. Okay. Now, what is this Bhagavan? Actually, all throughout the Bhagavad Gita, whenever Krishna speaks, uh, what's it says? Bhagavad Gita says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. So, what is this Bhagavan? Okay. So, here is a definition by Parashar Muni, who says that a personality who possesses complete knowledge, who is the source of all knowledge, is Bhagavan. A person who possesses all beauty, who is the source of all beauty, is Bhagavan. A person who possesses complete strength and is source of the strength, complete fame and is source of all fame, even if he steals, he is known as Makhan Chor. All wealth, he is the source of all riches. Yet, despite of all this, who has complete renunciation, tyag, any personality or that personality, Bhagwan is that personality who possesses these 6 opulences in full. That personality is Bhagavan. Opulences, full of these opulences. And this is the definition by Parashar Muni. Srila Prabhupada establishes that Krishna is that eternal person who is Bhagavan, who is that Bhagavan, which is being spoken about in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So, again, we have to, Srila Prabhupada, this is again an excerpt from the preface itself. We have to accept this fact and thus understand the historical significance of Bhagavad Gita without any misinterpretation on the authority of Krishna. To interpret Bhagavad Gita without any reference to the will of Krishna is the greatest offense. So if you want to understand Srimad Bhagavad Gita, just like how Arjuna did, we must accept Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead. Then only Bhagavad Gita can be understood by us. All right. So now you may say, what if there are so many acharyas like in other sampradaya or in some other organizations who say no, God is actually formless, and these ISKCON people simply keep on worshipping Krishna. It's not correct. Our Vedas say that God is formless. So Srila Prabhupada is not giving his opinion. Srila Prabhupada is giving the knowledge which he has received from Guru Shishya Parampara. And it's a proper parampara, a genuine sampradaya. The name of the sampradaya to which ISKCON belongs is Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnav Sampradaya. Alright, the sampradaya which begins from Lord Brahma and has personalities like Narad Muni. Alright, so I will show you our Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara, which is introduction. Just give me a moment. Yes, so this is our Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, beginning from Krishna, who is the source of all knowledge, to down to Brahma, Narada, Vyasa, and Srila Prabhupada is basically the 32nd Acharya in this Sampradaya. So, Prabhupada is establishing Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead on the basis of Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. But now someone may question, there are so many other sampradayas who say that God is actually ultimately formless. So, whenever a Vedic truth is or whenever Vedic knowledge is explored, it is considered to be truth only when Guru as well as Sadhu as well as Shastras agree to it. Then it is considered a Vedic truth. So Srila Prabhupada has the authority of his Guru in proving that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has the evidence from the sadhus of Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya to establish that Krishna is a person and he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now in the introduction, he quoted the Shastras to prove that ultimately God is actually a person and it is Krishna. Now let us explore those verses which Srila Prabhupada quotes in the introduction. So one verse which he quotes is from Sri Brahma Samhita, which says, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. The translation to this is that Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. That means he's a person. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin. And he is the prime cause of all causes. So this is one verse which Prabhupada uses as an evidence from the Shastra. Another very important verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Vadanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yaj jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate, which means learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma or Bhagavan. So here it is explained that actually there are two classes of people. Basically, what I'm trying to do is explore this word transcendentalists. So several people approach the Shastras and start worshipping God either to just to come out of their misery or to achieve what they want to achieve in this world. But there is a class of persons or men who study the Shastras to understand the absolute truth. Who is God? What is my relationship with Him? What is the absolute truth? So, yeah, those transcendentalists call this non-dual substance or Param Satya as Brahman, which means that God also has an impersonal aspect, a, a Brahman, a Brahma Jyoti kind of a, it's not a form, but a formless existence, Brahman. So that is an aspect of God. Okay. Another aspect of God is Paramatma, the form or that aspect through which God is present in everyone and in everything. So Paramatma is that aspect of God which is present everywhere and in everything. But yet in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is emphasized that there is another aspect also called the Bhagavan aspect. Through this aspect, who we know as God uh, exists in the form of a person, an eternal loving person. That's Bhagavan. So Prabhupada quotes these verses, and I think there's now you will say, but what about, Krishna? So there's another verse which I'll try to share. Yes. So this is another verse which Srila Prabhupada quotes from Srimad Bhagavatam. Ete chamsha kala pumsa krishnastu bhagavan swayam indrari vyakulam lokam hridayanti yuge yuge. So translation is all of the above mentioned incarnations. Whatever incarnations are mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam are either some portion or some expansion, but Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. Bhagavan Swayam. All of them appear on the planets wherever there is a disturbance created by the atheists. The Lord incarnates to protect the theists. So, these are some verses which Srila Prabhupada quotes to establish Krishna as a person, the God, Supreme Personality of Godhead, or God as Bhagavan or a person and the Supreme Person. Now, but what is my eternal relationship with Krishna, right? So, that also Srila Prabhupada establishes in the preface. Age of Kali, everyone in the age of Kali are enamored by external energy of Krishna, and they wrongly think that by advancement of material comforts, every man will be happy. So, Srila Prabhupada is first of all encouraging you to think beyond the desire to want material comfort. And then he's saying that we must realize ourselves as part and parcel of the Lord, as an eternal relative of the Lord. And if you attempt to satisfy the senses of the Lord, that is the highest perfection of life. So in the preface, Prabhupada points out that God is eternal, you are also eternal, and there is an eternal relationship that exists between Krishna and all of us, each and every one of us. So this is established in Srimad, in the preface and the first three paragraphs of the introduction of Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. So what we have learned today is about how Krishna, we must, in order to understand Bhagavad Gita the way Arjuna did, we must accept Krishna as Bhagavan, and on the authority of Guru Srila Prabhupada, the sadhus, the Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, the parampara that we spoke about, and also on the basis of the Shastras, which Prabhupada quoted here in the introduction. If we do that, then we'll be able to understand Srimad Bhagavad Gita the way Arjuna did. All right, so it was a lot of philosophy. Now we'll move to a story. So here is a story about Amarendra Prabhu. He's very popular. He's if you see his YouTube channel, it's very well subscribed and his videos are followed all over the world. He's actually a student or a, I think, double masters from MIT. And he was just 5 years old when his parents accepted Krishna consciousness and started following the path of bhakti. So he was literally raised in bhakti. And I remember hearing from him once that his mother would not serve lunch to both his brother and him until and unless they played mridanga and sang some Bengali bhajan for their deity, their Radha Krishna deity at home. And so he was raised as a devotee. And of course, because of his previous Sukriti and his natural love for Radha Krishna, he is very learned in the scriptures as well. His classes are so deep and so profound. So there was this one story which he was sharing in one of his lectures on Bhishma Dev, which I have thought of sharing. So he was about to clear his engineering college, which was in Mumbai. That's where he studied. So he told his mother that Ultratech is coming to for placements, but I don't want to sit for that company, so I'm not going tomorrow. The process is tomorrow. So he was sleeping early in the morning. He was taking rest. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. And you know how mothers are. Mothers, he told her that please papa ko mat batana, don't tell him. But you know how mothers are. So she went and told the father and said, please, 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 अमरेंद्र को ये मत बोलना कि मैंने आपको बता दिया है. But fathers can't keep that secret. So suddenly at 7 o'clock, Amarendra Prabhu got a tight whack on his feet. And he woke up because of the pain. And he said, what happened? What happened? And the father was standing there with a stick in his hand. You have a placement process today and you're sleeping here. Quickly dress up and run to the college. And then he looked at his mother. Why did you do this? But mother just said, oh, please, please, please. No worries, no worries. Krishna's arrangement. Think of this as Krishna's arrangement. And then he said, but I've not shaved. If I have to go, the placement process starts at 8. If I leave now, I'll reach there by 8:30. How, when, why, and all. He said, nothing doing. The father said, nothing doing. You wear my formal clothes and run. So he somehow tightened that big loose pant of his father. He had not shaved. His CV was not ready, but somehow he just ran for the interview. He reached there by 8:30. And because he was always a devotee of Krishna, even during his engineering time, he would use his intelligence to serve Krishna by not only studying Bhagavad Gita but also teaching Bhagavad Gita to his juniors, to his classmates, batchmates in uh, in uh, in his engineering college. So he had this Bhagavad Gita study group. So now that group, those juniors were staying in the hostel and they found out that his CV is not ready. So they started making his CV for him. So and then the first round of that particular process was a technical paper, a written paper. So he said, okay, whatever Krishna decides, let me just try my best. And he tried his best in the written paper and somehow he cleared it. So he was like, oh Krishna, ye to clear ho gaya, now what next? The next one was a group discussion. So, in order to get ready for the group discussion, he quickly went to the hostel of his junior, the boys there from the Bhagavad Gita club and shaved, and then they got there. In the meantime, they were also trying to get his CV ready and everything. And then he went in for the group discussion. He was like, pata nahi kya पूछने वाले, I've never practiced, I've never done anything. And then suddenly the topic which was assigned to them was, does God exist? And Amarendra Prabhu was like, all my life I've prepared for this topic, because he was preaching since the age of 16. And he started speaking on that topic, but he knew it's a group discussion, even though he could have given a 1 hour, 2 hour lecture on the topic, but he spoke for 2 minutes. And now this is one topic that the other boys or other students of that group were never prepared for. So they were just babbling and trying to think and give some ideas. But Amarendra Prabhu gave a first class 2 minute discussion on the topic. So bang on, he made it through the second round as well. Now the third round. Now the third round was uh, a personal interview. Now and that had to be technical. So he was like, I was fearing because technical I was not very strong at. But anyways, he somehow, with the help of his juniors, he got his CV ready. He was now all clean shaven, and there was this one massive room with 4 5 tables of interviewers, and put one after another. It was a big room, and there were some invigilators also going around, and he was sent to one particular seat. Now he was looking at the interviewer and trying to smile, but in his heart he was thinking, oh my god, Yamadut. But then uh, as he sat, the interviewer said, are you from Radha Gopinath temple? So Amarendra Prabhu was shocked, surprised, and he was like, what? He said, are you a devotee? The interviewer said, yes. Hare Krishna, sit down. So then Amarendra Prabhu sat down, and you know, the interviewer slightly whispered to him, I तुम्हारा नाम लिख तो फिर, and he opened up his the first two buttons of his shirt and showed his kanti mala. The interviewer also showed his kanti mala, that yes, I am a devotee, and he was having a clicker in his hand through which he was constantly chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra also under the table. And then he said, तुम्हारा नाम लिख दिया है, टेंशन मत लो, but I have to ask you some questions as a formality. So Amarendra Prabhu was like, wow, so amazing. And then started asking some questions. So then Amarendra Prabhu was selected. He got the job, and when he went back home, his father said, देखा मैंने तेरे को भेजा, मैं नहीं होता तो फिर तेरे को ये job नहीं मिलता. So Amarendra Prabhu said, Jyoti Prabhupada na hoi to, it's all because of Prabhupada, because Prabhupada preached Bhagavad Gita all around. So anyways, the point of the story is that as we practice bhakti, the process given by our acharyas, we start experiencing the hand of Krishna in our lives also. We will not only, let us just invest a little bit of faith in the words of Srila Prabhupada and the sadhus and the scriptures, that yes, God exists. He is a person. His name is Krishna. And let's just put our faith in that and try to practice this process of bhakti for a while, and then you will see the hand of Krishna, and you will experience Krishna in your life as well. So this was the discussion that we had, the discussion that we were supposed to have now. So this is the summary. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We've come to know about the term parampara, disciplic succession. And in order to understand Bhagavad Gita, we must become a devotee of Krishna, just like how Arjuna was. Thank you so much.